Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, it's time for the Brown Sports Bag from the Heart of the Barrens, a weekly local sports machine. Alongside John Butler, here's your host, James Brown.
Shared studio, and then we have friends that come by to visit us, so we got to do a few little things as we do that, make that transition. Today we're going to have Mark Woodcock with us. He's going to talk to us about softball officiating. I'm sure many of you who have been around high school and softball for a little while probably know Mark, probably met him a couple of times, probably yelled at him a couple of times. Maybe he didn't like a call he made. That's the way it goes. I'm sure Mark's used to that kind of thing. But yeah, so we're going to talk about, they got a program that they started last year trying to get younger folks into doing the softball officiating. And so with that in mind, then they are, he's going to get in here to talk to us about that and just kind of generally how the season went for the softball officials. He managed to find a few to come, some newer ones, some younger ones joined them this year. And so we can talk a little bit about that too, how that recruiting process went, and then, you know, just generally what they're looking for. Mark, thanks for joining us today and talking to us about these things.
Sure thing, James. I appreciate you having me.
You're welcome. Let's start out with this youth program you guys have. Tell us a little bit about that and kind of how that came about, and, you know, kind of some of what people need to know in order to get involved with that.
Yeah, that's something that the KHSAA they started it 2 years ago. They really got a handle on it last year and got a little more organized. And it's a youth program. If you're between the ages of 14 and 17, you can officiate middle school softball. You still can't do freshman, JV, or varsity. But since our middle school season begins next month, this is a good opportunity if any of the youth officials or any adults, you know, that want to give it a shot. This is a good time to kind of break yourself in with middle school and get ready for the varsity season in the spring.
When does this begin, the program itself, in terms of like getting people trained and that kind of thing?
Well, right now, the games season starts in the 4th region August the 1st. Okay. So we're a month away. Season really gets going the following week, and we assign all through the 4th region, everyone except Russell County. They're the only school in the 4th that doesn't play in the fall. Okay. They only play in the spring, and that's where I do my assigning, all the way from Todd County to Clinton County. So it's a very broad area. Of course, you know, the central hub, most officials are from the Glasgow and Bowling Green area if they're there. But the process for it is actually the easiest way, either on Twitter, X, or Facebook. If you go to 4th Region Officials, just type that in. There's a link there that you can go to get the information, or you can contact me directly, either one. And the process is taking a 50-question, multiple choice, open book test, and pay your fees and get your uniform, and you're good to go.
So when you said open book, so is there like a program that you can pick up that kind of helps you learn how to be an official?
Well, a couple of years ago, we don't do books anymore. There's an app now that you use on your phone. Yeah. And it's actually a lot better, especially for the younger officials. Older officials have a little harder time with it, but it's the question pool is online also. All the assigning is online. Everything is on your computer and your phone now. But you can download the app, a National Federation app, which has the study guides in it. And when you have a question come up, just type in your search word, and it'll take you directly to where you need to be able to do the test.
What are like specific things to be a softball official somebody might want to think about in terms of time spent doing it, you know, and I guess learning the rules? A lot of times these people have played baseball or softball, so they have a general idea, but there are some nuances always.
Right, yeah. Well, the first thing you have to, the games start at 5:30, usually in the afternoon, so of course that's a factor with work and everything, so you really have to be able to be on site wherever the school's at that you're assigned to by 5 o'clock, 30 minutes before game time. And you're assigned to double headers. As far as the training, in the fall, we don't really have any meetings or classes or anything like that. All that goes on in the spring. We start our meetings in January for the spring schedule, which starts in March. And we have classes. We'll have about 6 or 7 during the spring. We usually meet out at the Innovation Zone here at Barron County, or we'll meet at a library in Bowling Green and do our classes for that. But it's a fairly easy process. A whole lot of it is on-the-job training.
Yeah.
But you work with senior officials, and it's a good bunch of people to work with. Also, I'd like to mention, if you not only for softball, but our fall sports are getting cranked up right now too. Football, volleyball.
Yeah, soccer.
Soccer's going right now too. So on Facebook, like I was telling you on that link, if you can click on 4th Region officials, if you're interested in any of those sports, all the assigners, you can just fill that out and it'll go directly to us. Chris Fields is the football assigner. I'm sure a lot of the folks know Chris. He's been around the game a long time. And then Adam Ryder is the volleyball official, assigning secretary. So, and I'm not really sure who's doing the soccer right now.
Yeah,
but
Ronnie Cowan used to.
Yeah, Cowan's not doing it now.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not sure who's involved with the soccer right now. I think we had a new one come in this time. But it's a good opportunity. Or you can contact me directly. You can contact me on Facebook, or give me a call or whatever, and I'll get you going. It usually takes about by the time you go through the process, doing your testing and everything, that'll probably take about 2 weeks to do that. And then of course you have to have proper uniform. A lot of people are that are interested in officiating. They've done youth leagues and things of that nature. So a lot of your equipment you already have, but of course you have to have the right shirt and the right pants and everything. Unfortunately, softball and baseball, they're the 2 most expensive sports to get going. It'll probably cost you $300 or $400 to get going, but you'll get your money back pretty quick on that.
Because of the equipment behind the plate, right?
Yes, the shin guards and chest protectors and face masks and shoes and things like that are an option. But it's a lot of fun.
Well, before we came in here to talk about this initiative you guys have going on, we were talking about you picked up 9 new officials this past softball season, I guess it was, in the spring for the high school season. And, I think you told me that was kind of higher number than you usually pick up. Did you kind of offset that, the numbers who usually age out of being officials? Yeah.
Retention is always an issue. I've been doing this for 21 years now as far as assigning, which doesn't really seem possible, but I have been. And we'll lose anywhere from 4 to 8 each year, and usually bring in 5 or 6 new ones. Like I say, this was an exceptional year, and fortunately I brought in some from the fringe areas. I had 3 in from Russell County, and I had a couple from Logan County too, which really helped. Like I was saying, the Glasgow and Barron are the center, so it makes it a whole lot easier to assign those officials in that area.
So what do you think attributed to get the more that you had coming in this year as new officials?
James, I've never been able to figure it out. Honestly, you never know. A lot of times it's like John and I were talking about officials coming back. Sometimes work gets in the way, or for the 30-year-olds and 20-year-olds, sometimes family is an issue. You've got kids involved in sports, and there's just a lot of things. And not every year, but almost every year, I'll have somebody maybe that's come back and saying, "Hey, Woody, I want to come back and try to give it another shot and do it." And it's there's a lot of different variables, but we've been fortunate over the years to have enough. We haven't had to cancel any games. We've been able to cover everything. But I never say never, especially at the high school level. We've really pushed ourselves to the limits. And we had to go out of region a few times to help out, but not very often.
Well, I was going to say, back in 2022, I think you came on here because we were talking about the shortage, basically, that we're staring at in pretty much every sport of officials, and games across the country in different locations were getting moved in football or canceled altogether.
Right.
And same thing was happening in a bunch of other fall sports, and it was kind of bleeding into the spring, some of the spring sports as well. So, but it looks like, at least in this past school year, the 2023-24 school year, that kind of alleviated in Kentucky quite a bit. I know we had some that were a couple of different assigning issues in different places, but they weren't in the 4th region.
Yeah, well, we talk to the athletic directors at all these schools and the coaches, and they work with us a lot as far as moving games. I've had this year I had quite a few Friday night games, and that's very unusual. Usually softball's Monday, Tuesday, Thursday.
Yeah.
You play freshman ball on Wednesday, and then they have triangles and tournaments and whatnot on Saturdays. But had several games go on Friday, so they've helped us out a lot by spreading out the games and not having them all on those same days, which makes it a whole lot easier.
Yeah, John, you got any questions, Mark?
No, I was just going to the rule changes I know it was in college, and I assume high school got it too. Didn't they change they kind of eliminated some of the pitching rules that were kind of hard, and I thought to interpret.
Yeah.
In terms of the leaping and all that would have kept me from umpiring because I didn't know what the heck they were talking about, and I coached for so many years.
Yeah, the main rule change on the pitching last year came in was where that they don't have to have both feet on the ground all the time. They can't replant before they throw the ball, but as long as they're in the air. The rationale for that is if they're replanting, they're closer to home plate and be able to get more force on the ball to be able to do that. If they're in the air, they're saying they're not taking advantage of that.
So it kind of simplified it.
It's made it a whole heck of a lot easier for us.
Probably didn't have near as much controversy over the pitching.
I went to a lot of games, observed a lot of games this year, and I don't think I saw maybe one illegal pitch all year. That was all I saw, and usually I'll see several of those. So it's made it a lot easier.
So that's that thing they used to call the crow hop. That back foot couldn't come off the ground when it left the rubber. Is that what it was?
Well, the crow hop, the leap is when it's a leap. They're flying through the air and then they replant. Well, the crow hop is usually when they just come off the rubber a couple of inches and replant.
Yeah.
So really the rules have become a whole lot more lax than what they were. They made it a whole lot easier.
Well, I did have a question. I think it was last year during the softball season, not the 2023 softball season. There was like a big bat issue. People were using bats that were turned out they weren't legal because the manufacturers had not labeled them properly or something like that.
Yeah, that's something that the ASA we have a bad bat list, and anybody can go look at it. It's ASA has a list of good bats and bad bats, and I recommend all the officials keep a list with them just in case. But we used to have to inspect everything. John, I don't know if we done that when you were. Yeah, umpires would have to get there early.
Yeah, and put it in some type of ring or whatever.
Yeah, we've done all the equipment and everything. But now we just ask if you're legally and properly equipped, and we put all that burden on the schools. And but I don't think we had a couple of big tournaments in this region also, and I don't think we had any problems with bats or anything. And of course, in tournaments, a lot of times they're looking for stuff like that more so. But the bats haven't been an issue like they were in 2022. That was really the last year that we've had any problems with that.
In terms of the softball this year, I thought it was pretty high level in the region.
Yeah, well, fourth region traditionally is it's one of the top 2 or 3 regions in the state,
and that makes I would think from the basketball perspective, I always said the hardest games to call in basketball are when two teams can't play.
You got that right. Yeah.
And when you have good softball and they're around the plate and things like that, the game goes quicker. And I just think it's an easier game to call.
Yeah. Umpires can call strikes, and coaches always love that.
That's
and then you keep the flow of the game moving. And
there's nothing crazy that really happens when good teams play. It's normally, it's when bad teams are playing and people are missing a bag and having to go back.
Exactly. Yeah. But, and we've, of course, Barron County, their game in the last 8 or 10 years has really come up as far as level of good softball here at Barron. And, of course, Greenwood, South Warren, Warren East traditionally has always had a good team. Of course, they moved into the 15th now. Made us a lot stronger. Allen County overall. Yep. Logan County has got a great bunch of athletes down there right now. And I suspect they'll be making some noise in the future also. So it's and that helps with the umpiring too. Anytime our officials go anywhere, they always talk about our officials, what a good job we do. And I think a whole lot of that is because of the level ball that we see here.
And moving the middle school to the fall, I think, has helped too.
Oh, it's helped tremendously, especially for scheduling.
Scheduling purpose. Umpires is just more games they can call and get used to as well.
That's right. It didn't blow all up at one time. Phil Burkeen is the baseball assigner, and baseball does their middle school in the spring, coincides. And I know Chick told me there was more than once that he had to call middle school games with one official.
Yeah.
So and that makes it quite difficult. So we're fortunate to be able to do the middle school in the fall and give the new officials an opportunity to kind of, make some extra money and kind of decide whether or not they want to do it in the spring.
So, like for softball officiating, I mean, would the optimum to be have 3 officials on the field, or I mean, is it softball game where you can kind of do it pretty well with just 2?
Well, 3's a whole lot better.
Because you don't have somebody trying to figure out an angle on third base.
Yeah, and the second base is hard too.
Oh, yeah.
When you've just got 2 officials, a lot of times. Angles, it's any kind of officiating. It's all about angles and timing, and it's a lot of times it's hard too with 2 officials. But we use 2 during regular season, and then when postseason gets here, we run 3-man crews through the district and the region, and through the state also.
So right now in softball, like at the high school level, what is the optimum number of officials you need, and are you there, or are you close?
Yeah. Year before last, I think I had 40 or 41. This past season, we finished up with 39. I had started out with 40, so that's a good number for me. Like I say, I don't do the middle school, and I'll have probably around 20, 25 maybe for middle school, and I'll be scheduling. I think I've already got about 300 games right now already in the arbiter system for the scheduling, and then we're hosting the state tournament this year also down at Buchanan.
Okay.
So that'll be a lot more. We'll probably have 450, 500 games this fall also. But what makes it such an issue, again, like I was saying, with the sports going on right now, I've got a lot of the guys that do multiple sports. So I've got many guys, including myself. I do volleyball. So we've got volleyball going on. It starts in the end of August, and I've got a lot of guys that on these football crews too. So it's we're spread pretty thin, in the fall.
I think the other thing too is a lot of your guys that started off with middle school and high school, you've got several. I know of several that are big time college.
Yeah.
I mean, big time.
Jim Cooper.
Jim Cooper, he did the ACC tournament. I saw him. Yeah. I know he does Louisville, and he does.
Oh, yeah, he does.
ACC, a lot of the ACC stuff.
Yeah, Jimmy does. He does SEC and ACC and Big 10, Big 12.
Yeah.
And
he started off at the bottom, right?
He started out in the 4th region,
correct.
working for me. Yeah, and he's retired now, so he's able to travel a lot more. So he's working. Tyler Jesse, who called in the state tournament this year, he started calling college. This is his 2nd year in the college level. And
is he originally from Metcalfe County?
He's a Metcalfe County.
Okay.
Yeah, sure is. And he does a good job. And he actually had the plate finals on the regional this time.
Okay.
And then I've got Mike Berry, who he's down in the Logan County area down there. He calls college ball, and I'm probably leaving 1 or 2 more out, but I've got 4 or 5. Adam Ryder. Now he does a lot of college also. So we've got a good core, and all those names that I mentioned, those guys, they really help with the training. And they really help out too. So it's like I say, it's a lot of fun too. We enjoy the camaraderie and traveling together, and it's.
Well, I'm gonna ask you an off-topic question right here, more or less. So what is your most memorable interaction with a coach who they could have agreed with your call, maybe, but maybe it was just the most memorable one? You ain't got to name them.
I remember I pulled a boner with John one time. I think I even called him on the phone after the game and apologized to him for kicking one real bad. I don't know if you remember that or not, John, but that's been a lot of. Well, that was in the 90s.
Started in the 90s.
Yeah, it was in the 90s. I remember that, but no, I've had a lot of good interaction with coaches, and I enjoy the administrative end as far as working with the athletic directors and the coaches, and I enjoy the training, and I don't get to call anymore much. I worked 5 games this year.
Yeah.
But I still enjoy that. Of course, I'm not as young as I used to be and not able to do a whole lot either, but I still enjoy being out there on the field. But
I don't know if in like the diamond sports the coaches do this as much, but it's kind of famous in basketball coach parlance to work the officials. So, I mean, maybe it's not. Maybe that's a John question more than a Mark question of working the officials. Did you do it more or less in basketball, or you see that happening a whole lot?
Well, you don't see that a whole lot in
No,
softball.
you don't.
Yeah, I
You
didn't
don't.
figure.
Yeah.
Borderline pitches and things of that nature. You might hear a little bark or something like that, but that's most of the officials are used to
Simplifying the
that.
pitching rules is
Yeah.
that has taken a lot of it out because, like I said, I didn't know enough to complain about pitching stuff, but there were other guys in this region
Yeah.
who knew everything about it.
Yeah.
Coach Roberts at Allen.
Oh, yeah.
He knew more than probably the experts knew.
Yeah, him and Reese, they probably
Yeah,
too.
Penny Reese. That's right.
Yeah, they knew, and she's back in our region now.
Yeah, she took
right.
that bowling
She's
green
at
job.
Bowling Green.
What'd you think about that? We didn't talk about that last week, John, but it's kind of a good question now to ask her coming back into the region. She's been at Grayson County for like 6 years, I think it was, back at her home school, something like that. But now she's gonna be back in the 4th region.
Yeah, obviously she's one of the best softball coaches in the state. I would think that will guarantee that will elevate the Bowling Green program.
Well, yeah, Penny and I have a history all the way back into the '90s when she was at Greenwood, and I've stayed in contact with her from time to time. And she went back to Litchfield to Grayson County. I think she was there 3 years.
Yeah, in Butler County, was she? Was she go to Butler?
No, she was at
I don't remember what she was, but
Brandenburg. What is that?
Meade County.
Meade County.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
right. And
yeah.
then
She was
went
in
back home
Meade.
to Grayson County.
And when she moved into Meade, used to be a perennial as
State
far as
bar.
always when it
Yes.
first started for the first 10 or 15 years, and their program had really gone down. And Penny went in up there and got that program back on its feet. And and she went and done the very same thing at Grayson County. And if she stayed there longer, I think they would have been more
Well,
contenders.
Grayson was really good a long time ago, back in the '90s and early 2000s.
Oh yeah,
They were
yeah,
really
they were
good.
they were too. Yeah.
Okay.
And Bowling Green have the numbers, and they have a wonderful facility. I don't know if y'all have seen that down there or not.
have,
They have a
yep.
turf,
Yep.
baseball and softball is, and they've got a great AD down there, Calvin Head.
Yeah.
Couldn't work with a better AD than what Calvin is, and they'll get that program going down there. I just can almost guarantee it.
Yeah, it really thickened up the 14th district. Her coming back to Bowling Green. 'Cause
Yeah.
the folks at South Warren and Greenwood are happy for the competition, but maybe not real happy for
Yeah,
it.
well, it'll probably take a couple of 3 years,
Oh,
but
yeah.
if she stays with it, she'll get them back. She'll get them back. And like we were saying, Bowling Green used to be a good. They were good year in and year out too. So
Yeah, I don't think they've kind of been down since Brittany Vaughn graduated. I mean, they had a pretty good little run when she was in high school there, and maybe they had a decent team a few years ago, but they've not. They've kind of been at the bottom with Warren when Warren East was in the district too.
yeah, the key to it is consistency as far as coaches. You have to
Yeah.
have some stability there as far as so the kids can buy into the program. And when you're changing coaches every year or two, it's really hard. It's hard for the kids to get involved.
Yep. Well, anything else, John?
Yeah, I appreciate Mark coming in, and it's hard to believe we're already talking about
It sure is. Yeah.
next year. What's next year's next month, really?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
and we've got 3 weeks until the actual high school golf season starts. It starts on July 22nd. So I mean,
Wow.
Yeah, it.
Don't need officials for that, though.
Well, maybe.
I don't know how they do that.
Don't need them to be as active as you do for most other sports. All right. Well, thanks, Mark Woodcock, for joining us. Real quick before we get out of here, once again, tell people the best way if they want to get involved in that youth program or if they just want to get involved with the officiating period.
Sure. Like I say, the easiest way is Facebook. If you're on Facebook, just type in 4th Region Officials. There'll be a link there. You might have to scroll down a little bit or something, but there's definitely a link there. Or you can contact me directly either on Facebook or, just any way you can, and we'll get you going. And even like I said again, if you're not involved, if you don't want to be involved in softball, if you are interested in volleyball or football or soccer or anything else, get on there and do the same thing because any help would be appreciated.
All right. Well, thanks a lot. This is the Brown Sports Bag presented by McDonald's of Glasgow. We'll be right back.
Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, it's back to the studio with James and John, the Brown Sports Bag.
Well, John, the NBA draft was Thursday night. We talked a little bit about that last week when we were on the show and mentioned the fact that it looked like the top pick would be a French guy, but it turns out the top 2 picks were the French guy, and the third pick was Reed Shepherd, which I really didn't expect him to go third. I was kind of surprised by that. I thought he might go a little later in the top 10, maybe 7 or 8, somewhere in that neighborhood. Were you a little surprised that he went that high?
Well, he was projected anywhere in that 2 through 8 range anyway, to be honest with you. If you asked me before the year, I'd be shocked.
For real.
Yeah.
I would be shocked he wasn't still at Kentucky before the year.
I mean, but he's a fit with Houston. It doesn't look like he'll start, which is nothing new. He didn't start at Kentucky either, right?
Yeah, 5 games, I think, the whole season.
But, they got a good young team that got it up to, I think, 500 last year. Didn't make the playoffs because they were in the Western Division, but they needed shooting desperately.
Yeah.
And he can play that 1 or 2, and, he shot 52%, I think, from 3. So,
yeah,
he's it didn't matter what team he was drafted on. He's a player that he can play for any team.
Yeah.
And because, he just soon make a good pass as he take a shot. I mean, he plays well with others, I guess, is the point.
Yeah.
And Houston's very defensive-minded. The coach was the coach at Boston before he lost his job, and he's known to be a really good coach.
Yeah.
So they're
Ime Udoka,
that's
I think
correct.
Is his name.
But they do need some shooting, and boy, you can't get a better shooter than Reed Sheppard. Probably can't get a better overall. Just, he's not that big, and probably not the greatest one-on-one defender, though he's a good off-the-ball defender.
Yeah.
But I think he'll be a solid player no matter where you go. I don't know if he'll be an all-star. Who knows? When you draft somebody 3, there's high expectations.
Yeah. When
you're the 3rd overall pick, but he will help wherever he goes, and he'll help Houston.
He's one of those players. It's almost like maybe a Tyler Hero or somebody like that, where what they do offensively negates the weakness on defense that they're faced with. You know what I mean? That size advantage that somebody would have against them, a bigger guard, that kind of thing, because his capability of scoring, especially shooting the ball and passing the ball, kind of, it's that, what is it, the plus minus. He's a plus side player, even though he's not necessarily plus size defender.
I'm not for sure who he reminds me of. Definitely not Tyler Hero.
Well, he doesn't remind me of Tyler Hero, but defensively, that's kind of what I'm getting at.
Yeah. He's just makes people better. I mean, I don't know how to put it. I mean, whether it's knocking down threes or making the direct assist or the assist that leads to other assists.
Right.
He's just one of those players that just fits with whoever. And the 3rd overall pick, little surprising at one time, but he's probably a can't miss. Though I don't know. Like I said, I don't know if he'll be a first-team All-NBA type player. Right. I don't know if he has that capability, but boy, he'll help the team, he'll help the franchise. I can tell you that.
Well, I'm about to commit blasphemy, but I may not be the first person to do this. Talking about a comparison, maybe it's actually Steph Curry coming out of Davidson, because he's not as quick as a ball handler as Steph Curry with the ball in his hands, but in terms of like being able to get around the court and basically shoot from anywhere he wants to on the floor is what I'm getting at. And coming out of Davidson, I mean, that was the thing about Steph Curry. Nobody thought he was going to pan out because he wasn't big enough. He shot threes, but he didn't really score inside the three-point line. And everybody was like, well, he's going to be a defensive liability, and he's not a point guard. That's what they would say about him. And it just turned out he was just a different player. Nobody had seen a player like him before.
Yeah, we'll see. That'd be great if he could be. But I'll remind you, Steph Curry averaged about 30 a game at Davidson.
Well, you know what? It brings back the question that we spent the whole year talking about.
And I don't know if he has that mentality, Reed Sheppard.
He may not.
Right.
I don't know. Plus, the similarities kind of end there, but they also kind of don't, because they both came from basketball playing families that grew up around basketball their entire lives. They, kind of gained this intelligence of the game, both as a player but also watching it,
right?
Being around it all the time. So there are some similarities there, I think, there as well. Plus, there are questions about them. I mean, the reason Steph Curry was at Davidson is because they didn't think he could play at a higher level.
It's true.
Reed Sheppard ended up at Kentucky probably as much as anything because he could play at Kentucky, but also he did have that kind of nepotism of Kentucky being a place where even if he couldn't play there, it was a place he could go.
Right.
But it turned out, what I was going to get at, turned out he was good enough to play there. And it brought us back to this question about he only started 5 games all year, and that brings us back to these Calipari questions during his time at Kentucky that we brought up all during the season. Was it never seemed like he was playing the players that needed to be on the floor together.
Well, the 2 players that were drafted in the top 8, Sheppard and Dillingham from Kentucky, neither one started.
Exactly.
And the player that he started all year, Edwards, didn't get drafted at all.
Yeah. And then Reeves went in the second round, and
Reeves
people aren't even sure that he's going to be.
He should. I mean, Reeves is a good player for sure.
He is.
DeJuan Wagner.
Yeah.
Not DeJuan.
DJ.
DJ Wagner.
Son of DeJuan.
He's at Arkansas.
Uh-huh.
And Bradshaw, one of the consensus picks, he's at Ohio State. So it's funny, the two players that came off the bench are top eight picks. But,
Yeah.
Kepler has a history of that.
Yeah. It's our last jab at Calipari until next season, because it just circles this whole past season and all the complaints about it.
And couldn't get out of the first round.
Yeah.
That's part of the UK frustration of the fan base.
Yeah. You know all those times that he mentioned all these players that were his NBA players, that he had brought in, and they were one and dones, and my guys in the NBA, and they came through Kentucky, and that makes Kentucky great and all that kind of stuff.
17 straight years they've had a player drafted in the lottery.
Yeah, but after this past season and the two that were taken in the first 8, you have to scratch your head and say, well, maybe Calipari just got lucky.
I don't know if it's luck. I think there's something to. There's no question tremendous recruiter.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I mean, just it seems like half of the NBA is UK people, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
But the frustrating part is to have all those good players, but can't get out of the first round in what, 4 out of the last 5 years?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, they got out 2 years ago and got beat by kind of an average Kansas State team, but losing to the St. Peters of the world and the Drexel and
yeah.
And going
floundering around in the SEC tournament,
9-15 at 1 year. So yeah, I mean, it was the end of the run made it even more frustrating, considering the talent was still flowing through there.
Yeah. Well, this isn't on this sheet here to talk about necessarily, but it did make me think about this as we were discussing it. I mean, what do you think so far about the Mark Pope's recruiting?
Don't know. I don't know anything about. I don't know anybody at Louisville or Kentucky. I just know brand new teams. Mm-hmm. Nobody has come back.
Yeah,
I have no idea. I mean, that's part of the problem in college basketball.
Yeah,
you just don't. You don't know these players anymore. I don't know. I guess I could go YouTube and watch them play or whatever. But I don't have a clue. I like both the Louisville and Kentucky coaches, but with UK, I think they'll be fun to watch. I really like Mark Pope. The question is, can he get enough talent?
Yeah,
that's can he get enough talent? That's what it's going to come down to. You may go, well, he may not have much talent, but he may get past the first round. You can say that. That may be true, but after 5 years, if he hasn't made a Final Four, he'll be in trouble.
Oh yeah, he might. I mean, will he get to 5 years? I mean, surely they'd give him 5.
Yeah, I mean, it just depends on the progress.
Yeah, that's true.
And the bar at Louisville is not near as high because they've been so much worse. But I would think the expectation would be at Louisville, you need to be back in the tournament in a couple of years for sure.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, it is kind of a fascinating the way the whole last season went for Louisville and Kentucky before it was all said and done. There was neither fan base was happy.
Correct. Louisville was just unhappy all year.
Yeah.
And Kentucky, just at the end, people liked last year's Kentucky team. They were fun to watch.
Yeah.
But the disappointment with how it ended.
Yeah. And so now you get a fresh start, and it's curious to see how long it takes the fan base to, round the corner with at least some level of happiness. Obviously, that'll have something to do with what happens on the court.
That's correct.
Anything else from the NBA
Well, I think
draft
the big kid out of Purdue.
Yeah.
He went way higher than people thought.
Certainly higher than I thought.
9 to Memphis. And all the projections that I saw were 25 through at the end. Most people had him in the first round.
Yeah.
But Memphis, it's where John not John, I was going to say John Wall. That's where the guy from Murray, the little guard who was just
when you said
John. Whoa, I've gone completely John, not even John. It's John Morant is
he
there.
Said John, and I was like,
yes, John Morant. So he goes to Memphis.
Yeah,
and obviously if you draft him number 9, they expect him to play.
Yeah.
And so it's a little old school. Now 25 years ago he'd be the number 1 pick.
Yeah, he would have been.
But the question with Edey is, can he guard at that level? Can he move his feet, to keep up all the screen rolls and all the action they're going to put him into? But he will be on the receiving end of a lot of penetration and lobs from Ja, to say the least. So I was happy for him. He put the work into it. 2-time Player of the Year and so forth. I think he stayed 4 years. He could have come back for a 5th. And so I was happy for him. That's a little old school return back to the center deal. So happy for him. And Memphis will be a little bit back in the news a little bit. I think people will be interested to see how he fits.
Well, and I kind of wonder, even though his skill set isn't necessarily like this at all, but the Jokovic's of the world, these bigger guys who have some skills, have kind of opened the door for some big guys. They don't have to be fleet of foot if they can do other things with the ball. And
he doesn't, though. That's the key.
Well, that's what I'm saying, is he is real old school in his skill set.
He's real old school, yeah. Now, he can do dribble handoffs and, a couple dribble and roll the basket and things like that, but he's not he can pass out of the post and things like that, but he's not a facilitator from like the Joker is and things like that. Totally different player.
Yeah, well, I mean, we are seeing kind of some of those dudes getting a return, at least getting a look.
Right.
We had a window there for about 10 years where those dudes weren't getting looked at all.
Still don't see people just throw it down on the block a lot.
No, and I'm curious to see. We saw, I think, during the playoffs, some teams running more post-action stuff, but there's a lot more maybe guards-related post-action kind of things. So we are kind of seeing the floor open up a little bit with the post because so many threes, I guess, are being shot. But it's just these days you got so many guys who can cover so much ground, it's just hard to score inside without a second defender coming on you from somewhere.
That is correct.
All right. Well, this is Brown Sports Bag presented by McDonald's of Glasgow. We'll be right back.
Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, it's back to the studio with James and John, the Brown Sports Bag.
John, former Kentucky track athletes have made a name for themselves, and really, I mean, Sydney McLaughlin Lavorne, I guess is her married name now. I mean, she already had a name for herself, but
yeah, she's tremendous. She's world record holder, defending Olympic champion, and so forth. And she was even better last night.
Yeah, I mean, in the 400-meter hurdles, broke the record there that she already held.
Yeah, she wants to go. She said afterwards she wants to go sub 50.
Yes.
Be the first woman in the history of the world to do that. But she just moves with such grace. It's she's just amazing to watch.
I remember when
she could probably, if the races weren't so close together, could probably also run the 400 and the 200 without hurdles out there.
Right.
I mean, she's just so smooth.
I remember when she was coming out of high school, when she was it was announced she was coming to Kentucky, and then I went and watched like her high school meets. I think she was out of Massachusetts is where she was in high school. And I remember just watching her in high school. I was like, that is the smoothest runner I think I've ever seen in terms of like no body motion, just pure speed, like straight out of high school. And she only had the 1 year at Kentucky, and then went pro after that.
Right.
And I mean, she's just getting faster and faster, and just you don't really think about trimming off milliseconds, so to speak, as somebody's running by improving their form and just how close they are to the hurdles in that event and their steps. I mean, you just don't think about the efficiencies that you can continue to work on when you're already the fastest person in the world in an event.
No, she's just wonderful to watch. I'll say that.
Yeah. It's a work of art running
it really
track.
Is.
And then Masai Russell
She won the NCAA hurdles, and she came back and won the 100-meter at the Olympic trials, too.
Yeah, former Kentucky athlete as well. And she was a little shocked by her time. I saw in her interview, that she thought she would do well, but like she just couldn't believe how well she had actually done, which I thought was a kind of an interesting, very kind of humble response, which is not the typical kind of thing of track athletes. They're usually not the humble set.
More so on the women.
True so.
Yeah. The only disappointment was Abby Steiner, who was she ran the 200, and she was the phenom when she was another UK person, but she had surgery back in I think March or whatever, foot surgery, and she did not qualify in the 200. I think she ran fourth, and that's you need to be in the top 3 or whatever.
Yeah, so just one of those, and then I think they had a guy, what's his name, Daniel Roberts. He finished third, but in the 100-meter hurdles, men's 100-meter hurdles. But what was interesting was I saw where it was the first time the top 3 finishers all ran a time below, 13 or something, whatever that number was that they ran. It was the first time all 3 of them actually ran a time below that.
And you had 2 U of L people too. You had the female, I think, discus thrower. She was second. And you also had the guy that was in the 5,000 meters maybe, or 1,500 from that is actually from Louisville, went to Notre Dame. He was second as well.
Yeah. And then last week, Katie Eisenbarger from WKU, she competed in the Olympic trials in the high jump. She didn't qualify for the Olympics, but she had a great run here at the end of the year in the NCAAs and that kind of stuff. She's also a volleyball player at WKU.
Yes, she is.
Good all-around athlete.
Say the least, yeah.
Yeah. What else stood out to you from the Olympic trials?
I don't know. I mean, I love the track and the swimming.
Yeah.
And I think it starts in Paris in 3 weeks?
I believe that's right.
In July or whatever. Yeah. I'm amazed at the track runners. It's in particular the 1,500 and the 5,000. I mean, it's just so much grit. And, the 1,500 for the women, they ran sub 4 minutes, and I'm just going, that's incredible. Just unbelievable how they do that. To be honest with you, they go 5,000, 10,000 meters. It's just, in that event in Oregon, it's spectacular. It's they have basically a stadium simply for track.
Yeah.
University of Oregon Stadium. It's amazing to watch that. Like I said, I like the swimming. The gymnastics they had announced their team last night, the women, and I think the men were the day before. But yeah,
well, that women's gymnastics team. I mean, there's some projections that might be the most dominant women's gymnastic team U.S. has ever had.
I don't know about that because two of them got hurt and are out.
Right.
2 of the better ones.
Yeah.
So.
They may have taken a blow here as they were here in the Olympic trials.
Simone Biles, right?
Yes.
Yeah, who basically had to withdraw 4 years ago, is back. I think it's Simone Biles.
That's right.
Yeah, she's back, and she looks like she's fully recovered from whatever was going on with her. It's more of a mental deal 4 years ago. So
she just talked. I remember 4 years ago she talked about just the emotional and mental fatigue, and
she had to quit in the middle of it.
Yeah, we don't really think about the pressure on her, and it does look like she's come back, and she's just kind of. It's almost like that. She's competing now, looking like a person
free.
who has nothing to lose.
That's correct. She's married. She's married one of the football players for the Chicago Bears, and just kind of looks like a lot of the Olympic athletes say the toughest is the trials, just making the team.
Right.
That's where the pressure is.
Yeah. Well,
but no, I love watching most of the Olympics. I mean, certain things don't interest me at all, but in particular, those 2 sports, the swimming and the track, is what I really like.
Yeah. Anything else about the Olympics you can think of? I mean, did you see they're going to have a nice train to haul people from London to Paris? It's gold.
No, I did not see that.
Oh, that's awesome! Don't you think?
I'm sorry, I missed that one.
That's all right. The train's faster than the people on the track, so that's why they got the train.
Okay.
No, one of the things I always think about with the Olympics is like the Olympic Village stuff. I don't know. I think it was the Olympics 4 years ago where they had the tour of the Olympic housing, and like they had those makeshift cardboard beds and that kind of stuff. I would just always think about this. You bring all the greatest athletes together and you put them in these facilities that are not terrific.
No, not at all. Are you covering the Olympics? Or are you making a special trip?
If Commonwealth Broadcasting would like to send me to Paris for a couple of weeks, I will definitely
take it, wouldn't you?
It would be my second trip to Paris. But this time I'd actually have to work. The last time I just went and visited all the sites.
Okay.
So yeah. But otherwise, I probably didn't like Paris a whole lot.
I got you.
Yeah. So hey, from your mouth to the bosses at Commonwealth Broadcasting, I will gladly go to Paris for them for 2 weeks.
I got you.
All right. Well, that's the Brown Sports Bag presented by McDonald's Glasgow. We'll be right back.
Presented by McDonald's of Glasgow, it's back to the studio with James and John, the Brown Sports Bag.
All right, we're about to bring you 9 minutes of two-stepping here. There's no telling what we might talk about before it's all said and done. It's really kind of a slow time because we focus on high school sports, and, it's the dead period. That it ends next Tuesday, I think, for football, maybe next Thursday for the other sports. They can start practicing.
The dead period ends. It's 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah, but whenever the official practice starts is different from each sport. But unofficially, they can start whenever the dead period ends.
Yeah, I think the dead period ends on Tuesday, or at least when I was looking at it, I think football can start on Tuesday. And I don't know.
And then that means the dead period ends for everybody the day before then.
Yeah, okay. So, but when I was looking at this for this year, it was actually a little bit different because it looked like everybody else's dead period ended, or at least official practices could start.
So that's different.
Okay.
Dead period ending is different from when official practice.
Really?
Yes.
I never really paid attention to that.
Dead period means no contact.
Yeah, okay.
Once that's over with, official practice means you can start making cuts and all that other stuff.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
Yeah. Even though official practice for a certain sport may not be till next Thursday or Friday, they can still, once the dead period ends, they can still show up. You can have involuntary open gyms and things like that.
Oh, I guess I never really just thought about the difference of definition there in terms of cuts, that kind of thing.
Right.
Because I guess it's kind of the same thing with, like, basketball and all that. You don't have a dead period, but you have a period where you can practice, but you can't make cuts yet.
That's correct.
Okay. Well, that makes sense then. Anyway, that all gets started next week. Fall sports will kick off next week. And as a matter of fact, next Monday we'll start having our coach interviews. We'll have a couple of golf coaches in next Monday and then 2 more on the 15th.
Okay.
And then we'll start getting the other coaches in from the other sports, soccer, volleyball, football, as we get closer to those seasons. It won't take long. We'll be here. We plan on doing some preseason stuff that we have not done before on 104 The Score that's related to each of the sports, trying to kind of put together some packages, sort of like I used to do when I was at the newspaper. We'd put together preseason packages, so we're going to try to do that kind of thing.
Good. Okay.
And the reason we haven't really done it on The Score is because the first year we actually had this website was December 2019. And then March of that year, everything shut down, and it was so hard to kind of get everything organized. But I think this past year, the COVID stuff was already gone, but I think everybody finally felt like they were back on a routine schedule. And so, it's without any kind of interruptions and that kind of stuff, except for maybe heat. We're kind of back to the traditional problems that we had before, not the unusual ones. So we got some plans for that kind of stuff as well. The NBA free agency looks like it's going to be a wild one this year. It kicked off, yesterday?
Yes.
And so just right out of the gate, Paul George went to Philadelphia, or is signing with Philadelphia. The Clippers cut Chris Paul right out the gate. So they basically have liquidated half their roster, but they did re-sign James Harden, of all people. So it's kind of weird.
Yeah, well, Chris Paul was at Phoenix.
I'm sorry, yeah.
No, Chris Paul was at Golden State.
Yes, that's right.
And now he's going to San Antonio.
Yes.
Paul George going to Philadelphia. That's a pretty big move. Mm-hmm. I'm not a huge Paul George fan, to be honest with you. He's 34 and he got a 4-year contract. Up until he's 38. I don't know if that's enough. What's enough for Philadelphia is whether the big guy, Joe Embiid, whether or not he stays healthy enough.
Yeah.
It clearly hurts the Clippers, but the Clippers are just too old.
Yeah,
that's the bottom line. I mean, they got Russell Westbrook, and you got Leonard, who never plays. Mm-hmm. They're just too old.
They're going to bring back James Harden.
They're going to bring back James Harden. Too old. Mm-hmm. That's just a sinking ship, in my opinion, anyway. So probably a good move for George. Probably has a better opportunity in the East. The East is not near as deep. Mm-hmm. Probably a good move for him, but still, I don't think that's enough.
Well, and I guess Klay Thompson's time with the Warriors is going to be over with.
Going to Dallas. Looks like part of a 3-way trade going to Dallas. Was the last I read. Yep.
Which is so weird.
Golden State's another team. It's too old now.
Yeah.
Bottom line.
It's one of those where I was reading a thing and they said, well, what they need to do is build around Steph Curry. And I'm like, well, okay, but that's what they did. This is kind of like sometimes teams just age out.
They age out and they price themselves out too.
That's right.
And it's the one thing in the NBA, unlike football at times, none of the best players, they all claim they want to win, but they all want the money. Well, no matter how much money they've made. I mean, some of them have made close to $500 million. They still want all that money. And, the older you get, you're generally not as good eventually. Mm-hmm. And, we'll see. If LeBron really, really wants to win.
Yeah, because he opted out of the contract he had with the Lakers, and we're going to see what he opts into.
See if he goes down to about $20 million where they can get somebody else.
Right.
But we know that's not going to happen. They just don't do that. They don't do the Tom Brady move in basketball. They take, as they say, the bag, and they don't do it, and then they complain about not having enough good players around them.
Well, and the other thing about the NBA is because of the structure of the NFL contracts, we've seen where teams can win on a quarterback's rookie contract. It may be his third year, so he's gotten to that point where he's good enough, but he's still on that same contract.
Well, these rookies in the NBA are 19. They're not ready to win.
Yeah, that's exactly it. So, and you don't really have a rookie contract structure like you do in the NFL.
If the NBA was smart, they'd go back. They do the same thing the NFL.
Yeah.
Wait 3 years, and then they can come out when they're 21, and when they're ready for a big contract, they may now be 25 or 26. That's when you can really get something out of them.
Well, to that point, we've been questioning the Boston Celtics when they were going to turn the corner. Well, guess what? They hit the prime of their careers. They're key players, and here they are.
Mid to late 20s.
Yeah.
Rather than 19 or 20. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we could see what they potentially could be, but it looked like every year they were going to not reach it.
Right.
But now they've hit the prime, and here they are. And they look like, depending on who all decides to take a bag.
They're all signed.
They are all signed.
They just signed the guard today, too.
Drew Holiday?
No, White. He got an extension. Drew Holiday's already signed.
Yeah. Well, that's true. They are actually in much better shape than a lot of these other teams. They're not in the middle of a negotiation situation when they're also in the prime of being able to win championships.
Yep.
It may have panned out perfectly for them.
Right.
But yeah, the NBA free agency is a wild thing because it is.
There's so much money in the NBA and there's so few roster spots.
Yes,
so people are making ridiculous amount of money. That's $50, $60 million plus endorsements.
Yeah.
And Klay Thompson actually took less money to go to Dallas, but it adds up to be more because there's no state income tax in Dallas.
Right.
In California, you hit doubly hard.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's kind of like I think that was the Heat's benefit for several years there.
Yeah, Florida has no state income tax.
Yeah,
so they have the two NBA teams there.
Yeah. I guess, there's nothing that's going to be too shocking. Maybe the Klay Thompson thing is the most shocking thing just because of the history of his time with the Warriors. I don't have to say that, just that it's going to be weird to see him in somebody else's uniform. But I guess the most interesting thing is what we just talked about. Will LeBron James, how much of a pay cut will he take if he's serious about this and putting people around him to win? Or is he just trying to funnel some money to Bronny so he can set him up?
Yeah.
Is he negotiating two contracts at once?
Well, one of the players they wanted to get was Klay Thompson.
Yeah.
So he didn't get him.
I wonder sometimes if
Paul George, who's from Southern California, didn't get either one of them.
Yeah.
So I think most of the people in the league, they know.
Yeah. Well, I wonder sometimes at this point in his career if there's a little bit of a message of you really don't want to play with him. It seems like a good idea, but you're not going to get the money you want, and
you get to blame if you lose.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's the big thing.
Yeah, and you never know what the coaching situation is going to be because he's had so many coaches through his career.
Right.
And you never know if Davis is going to be healthy or not. All right, this is Brown Sports Pack presented by McDonald's of Glasgow. We'll be back next week.
Thanks for listening, and be sure and join James and John once again next Monday at 4 for the Brown Sports Bag, a local weekly sports machine presented by McDonald's of Glasgow. Coming soon to your FM dial, this is Fox Sports Radio, WCDS Glasgow, AM 1230.